want to talk about what I think about Mike and Mark as human beings. I really want to talk about, just sort of the traps that we get pushed into as Black people. What happens to us as Black men, and why so many capable and intelligent Black people are doing nothing productive for the community. At best, they're doing something productive for themselves, and that's really it. And sometimes they can't even do anything that's really productive for themselves because their lives are sort of reaped with this tremendous amount of social and psychological and financial insecurity that comes with constantly being scared of the white man, constantly scared of what's going to happen if he gets mad at me and he cancels me, right? So what you do is when you can't protect yourself, you become gang affiliated to get protection. So your first big gang that you join as a Black liberal is the Democratic Party. Now, if you're a Black conservative, then you would join the Republican Party. So what you really have is you have Negro minions who are servants of the Democratic and Republican parties who basically are not truly pro-Black. They are basically Democrats in blackface. They're Republicans in blackface, or they're Marxists in blackface. And a lot of this comes from the fact that Black people, because we don't embrace a powernomics ideology, we are incapable in many cases of funding our own movements, funding our own ideas. So here's what happens. Give me a yes in the chat if you understand what I'm saying. Give me a yes in the chat if you're following this. This is for intelligent Black people. This is not for people looking for a fight. So you're Black and you have things you want to do and you don't feel empowered to do it on your own. So George Soros comes along and to Patrice Cullors, a trained Marxist, and says, I'm gonna pay you, millions of dollars to promote Marxist ideas. And that's what you do because you don't know how to fund your own institutions. You don't know how to build your own institutions. All you know how to do is go to college and get a couple fancy degrees and get a fancy job working for a white person. That's all you're trained to do. And you feel that you are this new Negro, this established Black person because you went to Brown University or something and you got a nice job and or whatever. And so, but here's the thing. Unfortunately, you're like a plant that has no roots. Or you're like, in a plant that has no roots, it's just going to blow in the wind. And so ultimately, powernomics, those ideas of Black ownership, Black control, Black institutional development, all that is digging up roots. And the problem with digging up roots is that the reward is that you are a little sturdier. You're able to stand your ground. People can't push you over. I'm not really cancelable. I don't give a shit if people try to cancel me. The hard part though is that it takes time and it takes a lot of work. It also takes some skill. Do you follow what I'm saying? And so this is why you have to get these skills to your kids, because unfortunately, when I see guys like the Dysons and the Hills, part of me, I don't think they're stupid people. I really don't. I mean, and really, they're both legitimate doctors in their field. I think Mark might have an EDD or something because he's in education, but still, he's a smart guy. And the problem is that they're beholden. There are certain people that they cannot piss off and still remain relevant or still remain on TV or still get a book deal or still be able to give speeches. They are slaves to the white liberal establishment. So when Joe Biden says jump, Negroes like this have to say, how high, boss? How high? And that is why, for example, let me give you an example. Remember back, does anybody give me a guess if you remember when Cornel West was very critical of Barack Obama? And Cornel West was standing up basically saying Obama isn't doing anything for Black people and this, right? So I happen to agree with his perspective. I felt that Obama needed to do more. And Cornel was speaking that point, and I agree with that point. Well, does anybody remember when The Atlantic gave Dyson 10,000 words to go into that magazine and bash the living shit out of a Black man who had stood by him for the last 20, 25 years? They literally said, they did to Black people what they do in the Ukraine-Russia war. What they do is they'll pick a side and they don't fight in the war. We don't want to fight the Russians. But what they'll do is they'll give you weapons to allow you to fight the enemy that they can't fight themselves. So they do just like Massa did back on the plantation. They'll send the Negro to go beat the other Negro. They won't actually do it themselves. So they sent Dyson. They used Dyson and Melissa Harris Perry, and it infuriated me. Because I said, well, why don't y'all go sit down somewhere and talk about this? Why this man was loyal to you long before Obama ever came along, and why in the hell are you letting the Democratic Party establishment demean you as a scholar by getting you to sit down and write a damn 10,000 word essay? That's a lot of words. 10,000 words, not disagreeing with the ideas of Cornel, not saying, hey, this is a good brother, he's a smart guy, I just disagree with him. It wasn't like, it was a hit piece. It was an assassination. It was, Cornel is irrelevant and he's worthless and he's a terrible scholar. I mean, it was unnecessary. Do you understand what I'm saying? This pissed me off because I admired both of those guys. And I said, was that all that necessary? Do you really got to go in for the kill on your brother because this white man told you to do it because he's trying to get more votes? Because they're trying to keep Black people under control. And Cornel West was pushing them to ask questions that they didn't really want to answer. Now, I'm not saying you got to agree with West. I'm not saying that at all. I've never told you to even agree with me. I've never said, everybody has to vote the same way I vote or believe what I believe. I've never said that. I've simply said we got to respect each other's ideas and separate the idea from the person. Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying here? So here's the deal. Here's where, I kind of chuckled, I guess, when I see Mike and Mark. I guess I'm thinking the reason Mike and Mark threw the jab they threw is probably because they're feeling some insecurity now. I think they're feeling very insecure over the fact that a lot of people are not listening to them anymore because they know what it looks like to see a person pretend to be an independent man when they really have a puppet master's hand up their back. The puppet master has his hand up your ass and he's literally moving your lips and telling you what to say. Remember, there are independent ideas that come from the Black community, right? There's independent ideas, and then there are ideas that are simply liberal ideas in blackface, or Republican ideas in blackface, or Marxist ideas in blackface. A lot of your civil rights movements, unfortunately, I hate telling you all this, but first of all, let me make this point by asking this question. How many of you feel that integration was a failure for Black people? How many of you feel that integration did a lot of harm to the Black community, made us worse off economically? How many of you feel that integration made us worse off educationally? How many of you feel that integration made us worse off in terms of family? Give me a guess in the chat if you feel that integration was an epic failure and all that. It doesn't mean the people in the civil rights movement didn't have They're the best interest at heart. It was just the wrong strategy. It did not work. We are worse off than we were back then. In fact, if I showed you a chart of black wealth now versus black wealth then, you'd be blown away because we literally went backwards in terms of economics, in terms of family. Our communities have fallen apart. It's just kind of a big mess. The brain drain probably takes a couple $1 trillion in black wealth out of the black community every year. Okay, so now that we get that point, here's the point I want to make to you. A lot of those movements were not really black movements. A lot of those movements were not black movements. A lot of those movements were communist socialist movements where black people were used as pawns on a global chessboard. They were nothing more than this 1960s version of what happened with Black Lives Matter. A lot of y'all saw right through it. We went to the Black Lives Matter website and we read their agenda. And if y'all remember, that whole agenda was all about LGBT this, transgender that, all these things that were really liberal ideas, Marxist ideas. They were not black ideas. And if you look at the 3 people that started Black Lives Matter, they were all trained Marxists. Are you kidding me right now? So here's the thing. If I go to China and I say to somebody, I say, show me a Chinese restaurant. There's one type of restaurant they might show me that's legitimately Chinese, owned by a Chinaman, makes food that is familiar to the locals, that incorporates Chinese culture. That's a Chinese restaurant. But if I say, show me a Chinese restaurant, and you take me to McDonald's, except in this McDonald's, the word McDonald's is written in Chinese. And in this McDonald's, instead of the regular menu instead of the regular Big Mac, they have the Chinese version of the Big Mac. And then instead of the value meal, they got the Chinese value meal. Right? Is that really a Chinese restaurant? Is that a Chinese restaurant? Or is that McDonald's in Chinese face, McDonald's in yellow face? Do you understand? So my point here is this. You have black leadership that comes right out of the black community. You have black leadership that has the black community's best interest at heart, that wants what's best for black people. They don't really care a whole lot about the Democrat Republican stuff. They just want what's best for the black community. And then you have so-called fake black leadership that is really Democratic Party leadership in blackface, or it's Republican leadership in blackface. So their job is not to serve black people. Their job is to sell black people. They're selling them to the Democrat or Republican parties. When Ice Cube was challenging the way black people voted, when Ice Cube was reaching out to the Democrat and the Republican parties, talking to the Trumps and talking to the Biden side, a lot of misguided black people gave him a lot of flack. They got really upset with him. How dare you even talk to the Republicans? What's wrong with you? And when I talked to Cube a lot, we talked on the phone a lot. Cube basically made a very clear point, and I backed this point up. I supported this point. He said, I want to get the best deal for black people. And I sat there and we'd have conversations about the responses from either side. The Biden administration, they tried to play the sucker card. They said, okay, you're black. That means you must be stupid. So we're going to offer you the sucker deal. So you know what they said? They said, well, we won't meet with you now, but we'll meet with you after the election. And of course, we both knew that was stupid. I said, they're not going to really meet with you. And he said, yeah, I know that. And after the election happened, here we are years later, they still never met with Ice Cube. They still never met with him. And so my point is to say that I'm tired of being disrespected. And I think that a lot of people feel the same way. And I think that that's why I don't have to sit here and tell you what I think about Dyson and Marc. I don't dislike either one of these guys. Both of these guys could call me right now and I would talk to them as if nothing happened. I kid you not, I swear, I do not take this personally. If you want to call me an asshole, shit, you agree with me. There's a lot of people who probably agree with you. Maybe I am an asshole. That's okay. But what I'm saying is we have to do something different. We need to take a different strategy. This whole Negro on TV, Democratic Party surrogate nonsense has to go. These people that are encouraging you to somehow believe that your white liberal allies are going to do something they've never done in the last 200 years has to go. And maybe everybody doesn't get it. Maybe some people aren't smart enough to figure it out. Maybe some people aren't courageous enough to step away. Maybe they feel afraid. Hey guys, if I don't get the white men's back and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how to take care of myself, boss. Okay, cool. But intelligent black people, I just want to encourage you. Keep doing what you're doing. Quit waiting for Superman. Keep educating your damn kids. Give me a yes in chat if you're educating your kids and not teaching them how to just go chase jobs. Yeah, they can go to college. Yeah, they can go to public school if you want to send them to public school. But you should be the primary educator of your child so the public school does not ruin them. And you don't want your child running up behind a white man looking for a job his whole life because he's going to end up either frustrated or enslaved. One or the other. Either he's going to be mad because he gets booted out of the system or he's going to be mad because he's a slave in the system.